Hi, are you ready to check out some books? Oh, okay. You're not sure what kind of books you want to read? Okay. Are you interested in any type of genres at all? You just kind of read everything? Okay. Well, I do have a selection of books that I love to suggest to people that don't really know what kind of book to look for. Libraries can be huge, but I do have a couple books here. They're all just kind of random genres. They're some of my personal favorites, and I can suggest them to you and see if you're interested in any. Perfect. Okay. Well, I have about 5 books here. Again, all different genres, and hopefully you're interested in some. So, the first book I have here is And We Stay by Jenny Hubbard. Because when I say just books, I usually like to, read the description of the book. Before I get into that, I just wanted to point out that if talking about guns and suicide and going to school with guns triggers something, then I would not suggest this book, because it does mention that. It's not surrounded around school shootings or suicide or things like that, but it does mention it. So if that does trigger you, I would not read this book, because when I do read the description, it does mention it. So again, if that's triggering, are you okay if I read the description though? Perfect. So, Senior Paul Wagner walks into his high school library with a stolen gun, threatens his girlfriend Emily Beam, and then takes his own life. In the wake of the trauma, an angry and guilt-ridden Emily is sent to boarding school in Massachusetts. 2 quirky fellow students, in the spirit of Emily Dixon, offer helping hands, but it's up to Emily Beam to heal her own damaged self. This intensive story, told in verse and in prose, paints the aftermath of tragedy as a landscape where there is good behind the bad, hope inside the despair, in springtime under the snow. This is a very good book, in my opinion. So, again, the book isn't circling around, suicide, but, just kind of goes through how poetry and her friends at boarding school help her to overcome, obviously that very traumatic event. It's a very good book. I do recommend it. So, if this is a book that interests you, we can definitely get that checked out. You don't have to choose now. You can choose at the end, and if any of these books interest you anyway. And you're more than welcome to read a couple pages if you'd like as well. So, this book, I love this book. I love a lot of the books that I read, but this book is one of my all-time favorites. I'm honestly about to reread this book. This book is The Memory of Light by Francisco X. Stork. This book as well does talk about suicide, and is basically, the whole point of the book is mental health, and they are in the main character does end up going to a mental health facility, and so if suicide and that type of thing triggers you, again, this book might not be for you. In the beginning of the book, it does talk about how she does try to commit. So I know to some people that can be triggering. So again, but regardless, this book is so good. Of course, it's my opinion. Okay. Vicky Cruz shouldn't be alive. That's what she thinks, anyway, and why she tried to kill herself. But then she arrives at Lakeview Hospital, where she meets Mona, the Livewire, Gabriel, the Saint, E.M., always angry, and Dr. Desi. I don't know if that's how you actually say her name, but that's how I say it. A quiet force. With stories and honesty, kindness and hard work, they push her to reconsider her life before Lakeview and offer her an acceptance she's never had. Yet, Vicky's newfound peace is as fragile as the roses that grow around the hospital. And when a crisis forces the group to split up, sending her back to the life that drove her to suicide, Vicky must find her own courage and strength. She may not have any, she doesn't know. Inspired in part of the author's own experience with depression, The Memory of a Light is the rare young adult novel that focuses not on the events leading up to suicide attempt, but the recovery from one, about living when life doesn't seem worth it and how we go on anyways. So kind of similar to the last book, about, experiencing something traumatic, and how you grow to live on from that. I mean, they're very different books, but also kind of the message can also be kind of similar. It's a very good book. So, this book, again, definitely recommend. If you're interested in reading a couple pages, you're more than welcome to. Okay, so the next book, we're shifting away from that type of theme. This one is another one of my favorites. I mean, obviously they're all my favorites, that's why I suggest them, but this one is a literary fiction novel, so it's a little bit different from, a young adult books that these two are. But this one is The Dive from Clawson's Pier by Anne Packer. So usually I'd read, the summary of the book, but this book is kind of old and the back page kind of ripped off, so I'm going to try to describe the book from my memory the best I can. So this book is about a woman who is in her early 20s. Her name's Carrie, and her fiance, her high school sweetheart, she's engaged to her high school sweetheart, and their favorite spot to go during the summer is Clawson's Pier. And, they start off the book with her fiance, and their friends going to this pier, and her fiance jumps off the pier, like, a lot of people do, and then I think he hits a rock, or something happens to him, and he ends up having to get run to the hospital. He ends up paralyzed, and I think it's from a spine injury, something similar to that, and she doesn't really know what's gonna happen to him. Like, is he gonna die? Is he gonna have brain damage? paralyzed, all the different things. And the main point of the book is Carrie and, you know, her having to deal with having her fiance in the hospital and paralyzed, not really knowing what's going to happen with him, but also, you know, she's young and she doesn't really know fully what she's going to do with her life. So kind of just, you know, it's not really like a romance novel, although, you know, she's engaged to this guy, but, you know, she's questioning if she really wants to get married to him. She's questioning, you know, what kind of career she wants to go on, you know, her relationship with her mom, all her friendships and things like that. So just kind of just her trying to figure out her life in a way, I guess. Her questioning her feelings, all that stuff. It's a very good book. I wish I had the description, because sometimes if I'm describing a book, I feel like I might accidentally spoil something that I'm not supposed to. It's like, okay. Anyway, so this next book you are probably familiar with, because it's extremely popular. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This book is a required reading throughout a lot of high schools. And I'm not gonna lie, the first time I had to read this book, it's not like I hated it, but I didn't really like it because it was more of like homework. Like, I love reading. Literature and English are my favorite subjects in school. And I'm a total book nerd. But when I'm having to read for like homework, it's like I don't want to do it. But nonetheless, it's a pretty good book actually. The movie is also pretty good too. But are you familiar with this book at all, or the movie? Heard of it? Yeah. So this book doesn't really have much of a description. The most it says is the story of the fabulously wealthy J. Gatsby and his love for the beautiful Daisy. Pretty much the summary of the book. J. Gatsby doing all this stuff to get Daisy's attention because he loves her. So yeah, if you're into these type of books, definitely check it out if you haven't already. Honestly, personally, I love to read the books before watching the movies. I'm a total book nerd, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, I love the books more than the movie because you get to imagine on your own. But I don't know, like, I'm the type of person where I like to read a book, and you know, when you're really into a book, like, you have your own like imagination of what everything looks like what the characters look like, all that stuff. And I love like reading a book and then watching the movie and then like seeing how other people perceived, you know, usually the author is like has something to do with the movie. Like, yeah, the author usually has something to do with the movie, so it's usually, the movie's usually like really similar to how the author envisioned it. So it's really interesting to like see if like what I thought in my head while reading is similar to what the movie is. It's really hard to explain, but yeah. I like movies also because like you get to see everything. But anyway, okay, that was random. But okay, I have one more book which is completely different from all these types, but Milk and Honey. I do not know how to pronounce her name, and I really don't want to butcher it. So, This is a poetry book. Be very short and sweet poetry. One of my personal favorites. I remember everyone had this book. I think I was in like 7th grade when this book came out. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I remember I was pretty young. Maybe. I don't remember. Anyway, and this book was extremely popular. And I actually never read it until a couple months ago. When quarantine first happened, I ordered it. But anyway, this isn't about me. This is about you trying to find a book. So, this book this is a journey of surviving through poetry. This is the blood, sweat, tears of 21 years. This is my heart in your hands. This is the hurting, the loving, the breaking, the healing. So, this book is split into 4 different parts. There's poetry about the hurting, there's poetry about the loving, the hurting, or the breaking and the healing. So, I read this book and I honestly related to a lot of it. And poetry has that beautiful thing about it where, you're feeling something and then you don't know how to describe it into words, and then you see someone else describe it perfectly. That's how I feel about this book. Or a lot of what she writes in this book. I'm not a huge fan of poetry. I'm not gonna lie, poetry is probably my least favorite things to read. But this is very nice. I love this book. So, those were my 5 suggestion books for you. Did any of them interest you at all? Okay. Yeah. You like to check out them? Okay, perfect. So I'm just gonna set these books back over on this side. And I'm going to write down the books that you are interested in checking out. Yeah, our computer system is shut down. We're having some technical difficulties, so we are just having to write down all the books people are checking out, and then later on we're gonna have to manually put it into the computer. But anyways, can I get your name, please? And then can I see your library card so I can write down the number? Okay. Thank you. And what books did you want to check out again? Okay. Alright, I got that one. And you also wanted. Okay. Alright, I got that all set for you. Is there any other books that you wanted to look around the library at all? I know you were browsing before you came up here. But there's, the library's huge. The possibilities are endless. Okay, you think you're all set? Alright, well here's your book. Set that right there for you. And these will be due in 2 weeks from now. Oh, sorry. I was shaking you. Happens all the time. So yeah. Well, I really hope you enjoy them. With books and all sorts of things, someone might really enjoy it. But anyway, I hope to hear some reviews about those books when you come back to turn them in, and hopefully check out some more books. Alright, perfect. Alright, right. Well, it was really fun chatting with you, actually, and I hope to see you next time. Alright, bye-bye.